Welcome to the heart and soul of a house. For the second consecutive year, we are going to take you into the heart of the Taittinger vineyards, at the very height of the harvest. We will explore more technical trades, from the vineyard manager to the laboratory and the winery, as well as meet a head winegrower and our head of cellar. Join us behind the scenes as we produce the fabulous nectar known as champagne. First episode, in the vineyards.
Bonjour, bienvenue dans le vignoble Taittinger. Je vais vous emmener sur le site.
Hello and welcome to the Taittinger vineyards. I'm going to take you to Venteuil, where we'll be meeting a picking team, the management staff as well as the team leader and some transporters.
C'est parti.
Here we go!
Christelle Rainville, directrice.
I'm Christelle Rainville, vineyard manager at Taittinger.
Nous raconter là ce début. Since you have been in charge of this viticultural year from A to Z, could you tell us how things are looking at the start of this harvest?
It is a rather exciting harvest, somewhat unusual for several reasons, and more specifically because of what we have all just been through, because of COVID, and we will remember this year as being rather odd, but it is also the very first year that I took the Taittinger vineyards in hand. So I'm quite proud, as well as happy and excited to take charge, as this harvest represents the conclusion of a particularly intense viticultural year.
La vendange reste la conclusion d'une année viticole intense.
Concrètement, qu'est-ce que vous faites pendant ces vendanges? What do you actually do specifically during the harvest? What is your job?
My job is very important both at the beginning and at the end of the harvest. Since harvesting is a particularly intense period of time where we have to pick the equivalent of 288 hectares of grapes working efficiently while ensuring an excellent quality. The work upstream is highly critical with a view to optimizing all our operations, both at all the presses and in the vineyards. Downstream, the entire administrative work following the harvest is also very significant. As for the harvest itself, I'm in the field basically to coordinate the 3 pressing centers with the support of our head winegrowers, who are there basically on a daily basis to organize the vineyards and pressing teams so as to maximize the quality of our actions.
Et des équipes vignes et des équipes pressoirs afin d'optimiser la qualité de nos interventions.
Alors l'explication du fait qu'on soit dans une voiture, parce qu'en fait vous êtes... So, how do you explain that we are sitting in a car? Because you are in fact on the road almost all the time.
That is true. I cannot do this by bicycle. I have to do it by car since our vineyards are spread between the north of France and the Cézanne area, and on the other hand between the Épernay and the Aube region, which is in the south of Champagne. There is a large distance between each of our terroirs, and during the harvest period I travel back and forth to all the vineyards to verify and assess the quality of our harvest. I also serve as support to our teams in the fields, and I work with the pressing centers to take daily stock of how the harvest is going, the quality of the grapes, and then finally what to expect in the upcoming days.
De la récolte et des prévisions pour les jours à venir.
On vient d'arriver. Nous sommes où?
Alors ici,
We have
nous
just
sommes
arrived.
sur un...
Where are we?
So here we are in Venteuil. We have a team here busy picking grapes. I suggest we go meet them and talk with the team leader, who oversees the pickers and direct the work of the various transport vehicles, where to deliver, the organization of empty and full cases, and the traceability.
Le travail des différents transports, où on les livre, gestion des caisses vides, gestion des caisses pleines, gestion de la traçabilité également, voilà. Ça veut un petit peu ? Le mieux, c'est de vous montrer un petit peu une des applications de ce qu'on...
It will be best if we show you a little bit about one of our activities. Here we are talking about the viticultural aspect, where the essential task is to pick the grapes. And to do this, we need a team leader. We have several teams distributed over different terroirs, so I suggest we talk with one of the team leaders, Rémi Franquet.
Rémi? Rémi?
Bonjour à toutes. Ma mission c'est de distribuer.
My job is to place the pickers over a picking circuit that takes into account grape maturity. We select samples 1 month previous to the harvest, so we know which area and which plot offers the ripest grapes. Then we head out a daily picking circuit, drawn up of course with management, as well as a selection of grapes to be pressed. If we need Meunier grapes, we cut Meunier. If we need Pinot Noir, we cut the Pinot Noir grape. Then all of this goes to the pressing centers. That is how we manage the harvest on a daily basis.
Et c'est comme ça qu'on gère la vendange au quotidien.
Combien de personnes vous avez comme ça à diriger?
Un bus de
How many
40
people
personnes.
do you manage like this?
A busload of 40 people for picking and 5 people from the house. 1 to handle meals, 2 for the full cases of grapes headed to the pressing centers, me to oversee the entire team, and then 1 more person to help move from plot to plot, because often in small villages like this, we do everything on foot.
Comme ça, on fait tout à pied.
Les contrôles de maturité, c'est fait comment?
Dès le retour de vacances, on attaque le lundi systématiquement.
How do you verify the maturity?
We systematically start on the Monday and Thursday following the summer holidays. We cut 10 bunches in the rows of vines along the length of the plot, on top, below, and in the middle. We place them in a bucket and we do a third to half of the plots of each sector, and then we go back to the house to analyze both the sugar content and the acidity.
Comment ça se fait, les taux de sucre, par exemple?
Eh ben, on écrase les raisins. Il se découle un jus qu'on prend et qu'on...
So, how do you assess the sugar content, for example?
We press the grapes and we take a sample of the juice to examine using a refractometer or density meter. This gives us an extremely precise ID and helps us assess twice a week the increase in sugar content, so that we can finally say, now is the time to pick such and such a plot.
Se dire, là, on peut aller vendanger telle et telle parcelle.
Ça, c'est fait à l'intérieur de nos centres viticoles. Ça, chaque personne...
This is done at our winemaking centers. Each person knows the technique and has the equipment necessary to conduct the analysis. In fact, maturity indicates 2 things. First, it helps determine an opening date for a pressing center. We need to have enough plots from all the vineyards come to a pressing center in order to establish an average started for the harvest. And secondly, the samples are used to refine the entire process over time to dive deeper into the picking circuit.
Alors là, Rémi, il n'est pas content parce que c'est pas rogné au carré, alors que vraiment, très honnêtement, il n'y a pas grand-chose.
So
qui
here
dépasse,
Remy
tout est
isn't
nickel, mais
happy
bon.
because the vines have not been perfectly trimmed, although quite frankly, there isn't really that much that sticks out. Everything looks pretty much squared away. But then, Remy is a perfectionist.
Ah oui, vous êtes perfectionniste?
Ah oui, un petit peu. Ça fait 20 ans que je suis chez Taittinger.
So you are a perfectionist?
Yes, maybe a bit. I have been with Taittinger for 20 years now. Thanks to Taittinger, I have changed my viticultural process completely, since the house uses as little pesticide as possible. We often apply only half doses and don't use weed killer at all anymore. We haven't used glyphosate for years now. To tell the truth, I didn't believe in this viticultural approach at first, but with the passing years, we have tripled the number of bottles sold. Taittinger is a pioneer in believing in soil preparation, and we owe that to Mr. Arvois, Mr. Collard, and now Christelle Rainville. It's all thanks to them, and frankly, it's a real pleasure to work knowing that there is less chemical input in the vineyards. For our health, for the health of everyone, for the consumers, and frankly, I think we are lucky to work in a company like this. In the end, you have to really want it. It's a bit harder on the employees, but honestly, it's a real pleasure. It's another world. You have to accept working with grass, with the vines being a little less than perfect. I am meticulous and can be a pain about it. But with the guys, I've learned to say, no, it's not perfect, but that's okay. It's the new agricultural approach of the company, of the Taittinger Maison. But frankly, I think it's paying off, and I hope we carry on like this for a long, long time.
On parlait de la Covid tout à l'heure. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a de plus à gérer que d'habitude? Je suppose que c'est pas évident tous les jours.
En ce qui concerne les vendanges, en fait, il y a eu
We were talking about COVID earlier. What is new in how you manage things now?
When it comes to the harvest, there was in fact a lot of work done with the CIVC, with the champagne houses, the winegrower syndicate, SGV, the prefect, and also the region to set up specifications to determine best practices with regard to COVID for each of the harvesting stations. That gave us actually a framework for implementing a certain number of rules, but I should say that in any case, the important thing remains maintaining distance and wearing face masks. Whenever people are less than a meter apart, the mask is mandatory. The only one excused from wearing masks are the pickers themselves. When they're working in the vineyard, they can't take off their mask. It's up to us to position them in the vineyard so that they are not working face to face and that they are staggered at more than 1 meter from another.
ce mètre de distanciation.
Vous avez senti que c'était d'autant plus de la pression pour vous qui preniez les manettes cette année ou...
I suppose it's not so simple on a day-to-day basis.
It has certainly been a bit more stressful, but at the same time, the harvest is not the only activity that was unusual during the period, since the debudding. There was the staking and the trimming of the vines, which also requires intensive manual labor. We had to completely revamp our way of working, but everything actually went surprisingly smoothly, so there is really no reason to believe it will be any different during the harvest. The greatest risk at harvest is having a member of the team fall ill. That could actually jeopardize the picking of an entire sector. Or a member of the pressing team. Then we would really be in trouble, since those are the key positions in the process. For the time being, everything is going beautifully, so we will cross our fingers in the hope that it continues through the end of the campaign, until harvesting is finished.
On va croiser les doigts pour que ça continue à se passer aussi bien sur la fin de la campagne, enfin jusqu'à la fin de la vendange.
Comment on en arrive à être
Have you
chef de
felt
vineyard?
that you are under even more pressure when you took over the reins this year?
Well, I suppose you need to have a bit of experience and perhaps some maturity. I started my career as a viticultural consultant with the Champagne Trade Association, the CIVC, which managed the entire technical perspective and promote the champagne appellation while overseeing the common interest of growers and the champagne houses.
How does one become vineyard manager?
During that time, I really wanted to have my own vineyard. But then when you're young, you don't have the resources, you don't dare basically to take the risk. And so I thought, why not manage someone else's vineyard? And I was lucky enough to manage another champagne house's vineyard before coming to Taittinger. And here I am, extremely happy and proud because it is one of the greatest vineyards, with some of the most magnificent terroirs in all of
Ça veut
Champagne.
dire que la femme prend sa place dans ce monde
Does this mean that women have no trouble anymore finding their place in this world of wine growers and winemakers?
Les femmes étaient assez rares au sein
Listen,
de
the
la
world has
technique
changed.
viticole.
When I first started in the profession, it's true that women were far and few on the technical side of viticulture. I am, in fact, one of the very first to have succeeded. Perhaps people did not discourage me, and the fact is, we see more and more women in the vineyard. More and more daughters are taking over their parents' vineyard. I think it's terrific.
David Darvois, chef vigneron à la marqueterie, chez Taittinger depuis 2002. Alors, le chef vigneron, c'est
David
le
Arvois,
chef
chief winemaker at the Taittinger La Marqueterie estate since 2002. The chief winemaker is sort of like the conductor for several vineyard teams. All the work in the vineyard, which includes all the work throughout the winter through to harvest, in other words, organizing an entire series of manual tasks as well as the mechanical work of the vineyard tractors. So, in short, it means bringing a crop to optimal maturity at harvest and pressing time, which is where we are now.
Alors là, on était dans les vignes avec un de vos collègues, Rémi. Ici, c'est pas la même chose, c'est-à-dire que le raisin, il arrive.
We
des
were
vignes.
in the vineyards
Voilà,
with
donc, suite
one
à la
of your
cueillette,
colleagues,
le raisin,
Rémi.
est
Things
acheté,
are a bit different here. In fact, here the grapes are arriving from the vineyards.
That's right. Following the picking, the grapes are transported by small trucks, packed in cases, small cases of 50 kilos, so as to avoid damaging the grapes to preserve their intrinsic quality and integrity. The grapes are then weighed and labeled by batches of 8,000 kilos, depending on their place of origin and crew.
Je m'appelle Victoria. Ça fait 10 ans que je participe aux vendanges pour la maison Taittinger.
My name is Victoria. I have participated in the Taittinger harvest for 10 years. I work at the pressing center. I take delivery of the grapes. I'm in contact with all our delivery people, clients, and the Taittinger champagne drivers. So I register the quantity and the quality of the grapes, and I make up batches of white grapes and red grapes by variety. Afterwards, we prepare the marque, or the pressing. Each pressing contains 8,000 kilos, or about 180 cases of grapes. You have to be pretty muscular to empty 180 cases into the presses, which is why we always choose strong men. So everything runs very smoothly. Our work is very well organized. You have to be fairly rigorous in my profession, because even a small error can have important consequences. You have to like working with numbers and have good IT skills.
Et il faut bien maîtriser les outils informatiques.
Ce qu'il faut, c'est quand même être très très vigilant, très minutieux quand même.
So it is essential to be very, very vigilant, very meticulous, because you cannot afford to make a mistake, right?
It's especially the experience that helps me since, after 10 years, I am familiar with the different varieties, and I know by heart which terroir grows which variety. However, as I was saying, you can't make a mistake and press more or less than 8,000 kilograms, or you'll have too much juice or too little for the marque. That's why rigor is absolutely essential. We press about 10 marques each day, which means 90,000 kilos of grapes per day.
Et donc là, en pleine vendange, c'est un peu la folie,
And
non?
so now, in the midst of the harvest, things must be sort of crazy, right? All day long you are standing?
Yes, I'm here all day, but you know, fatigue can be healthy. I love my work. I have a thing about the harvest. First of all, I'm originally from the Ukraine. I come from an agricultural country where our land is, how should I put it? The Ukraine soils provide a lot of fruit. Here I discovered these viticultural lands, the vines, and a countryside that I can contemplate all day long. It's magnificent. So I've become quite attached to all of this. Even the fatigue. It does ratchet up after 2 weeks, but I come back every year. Every year I fall in love with it all over again.
Mais alors, en dehors des vendanges, vous faites quoi?
What do you do for work outside of the harvest period?
I'm an accountant. I work at Le Foyer et Moi. My profession is a great help here. You have to have an accountant's reflexes.
Alors, une fois que le lot est constitué de 8000 kg, on va effectuer l'opération de pressurage. Donc, les caristes...
So, once the batch of 8,000 kilos is ready, we move on to the pressing. The forklift operators move the pallets close to the press, and then the cases are loaded manually. This operation takes 20 minutes. The cases are emptied one by one until there are 8,000 kilos of grapes in the press.
Ça arrive dans des cuves, racontez-nous un peu.
Ça se passe sous nos pieds, parce que les pressoirs sont ce qu'on appelle sous dalle.
So, here, everything takes place below us, where it moves into the vat. Tell us about this.
It happens below us because the presses are what's known as sub-slab. What's important is to limit how far the grapes fall. It has to be as little as possible to respect the integrity of the bunches. It's important not to crush them beforehand so that the presses receive whole grapes and can thus get to the interior of the pulp, which gives better juices and cuvée. Once the press is loaded, we close the hatches and launch the pressing operation. This lasts between 3 to 4 hours depending on the year and the grape variety. The juice is extracted very slowly in order to really get to the inside of the grape. The skin contains some sticky material which is of no interest to us when making a white juice for champagne. The juice runs off and is temporarily stocked in our winery for 24 to 48 hours in what we call the settling process. This involves a slow flocculation of the pulp and must deposits in order to clarify the juice. The juice is then transferred to our cellars in Reims at Klostermann, under the supervision of our cellar master for the various vinification processes. So the tanker truck arrives and we pump the juice and must into it. The tanker is compartmentalized so as to respect the various cru and grape varieties. The tanker then carries the juice to Klostermann, where the cellar master takes over the rest of the operations. Come on, I'll take you there.
Allez, je vous y emmène.
What happens to the must or grape juice after it is decanted into the tanker? In the second episode, we will head to the Klostermann production site in the house, where we will follow the rest of the process and meet the teams working there. You can listen to all episodes of The Instant Wine, as well as its French counterpart, L'Âme d'une Maison, on any of the podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Google Podcasts, as well as the blog, The Instant Wine, on the Taittinger website.